Welcome home all. Welcome on a Sunday evening. Been off for a little bit on the Sundays, but I'm back again. And you know the Sunday shows are Supermax International, where we talk about foreign policy, military policy, and national security. So not just United States, local or state, or even national for the most part, but more national to the international. And that's the genesis or the gist of what we do on this show. And so we've taken a step back tonight to make it a little more specific and not as general when it comes to the overall in terms of our foreign policy or national security. But in large measure, it does matter that we tackle this particular topic. So for those of you guys that were paying attention today in the group, on the Facebook group or other forums that I put out as a heads up, tonight is specifically dealing with the fall of the Berlin Wall. So yesterday, November 9, 1989, 30 years ago, was the fall of the Berlin Wall. So we are looking at 30 years, 3 decades, have gone by. And it's been, I would say, quite a ride in the sense, from where we came at that point. Some of you guys that watch me aren't even 30 years old, so you clueless as to what I'm going to get at here. But I guarantee you by the time we're done tonight, in a nice tight 30, 45 or so minutes, you're gonna walk away with knowing a little bit more than just what was in that history book. And in particular because I was fortunate enough in a global perspective to be a part and a participant in that motion that happened 30 years ago. I was physically in location in Germany. Full disclaimer, I was not actually on the wall, hanging out with the rad friends, the German people that made that night happen, that made that event, that seminal event in Western civilization, Western democracy in particular, such a unique and significant, really significant moment in human history. It really was. I wasn't there. I was hundreds of miles away in Göppingen, just by Stuttgart, and not in Berlin, which is far to the north. But I was in Germany as a stationed soldier in the 1st Infantry Division, Europe, 4th of the 16th Infantry Battalion, and pleasure and pleased to have taken, my small part in the larger overall, because there was full understanding at that point. If you joined service, specifically if you joined the Army, and if you joined infantry or armor, that you are joining with the possibility, the specter of, the decade-long specter of the Soviet Union, former Soviet Union, USSR, Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, with that specter and fear that they would, we would meet in a clash of, monumental titans, superpowers, the Soviet Union, and of course us, the United States. So if you enter and you're that, soldier at that time, and I like to distinguish, my son and I do it a little bit differently, but there is a distinguisher. We were Cold War, and I therefore am a Cold War veteran. My son is uniquely a sandbox veteran. He was in at the time when we were mostly, and the action or activity that was significant was done in the Middle East. So different forms of combat, different forms of strategy that needs to be implemented, different tactics, different logistics, everything's different. Just the terrain, geography, etc. But yes, so that was the time that you went in if you served and you were an Army or any other service member. The understanding was that our number one geopolitical foe and the enemy, for lack of something better, was the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the Russians, the Russian army, the Russian people, etc. And so it took the form of, and let's get down to some business here. Let's get you into the meat and potatoes of it. So August 13th, 1961, and this is, more than a few, but about a decade and a half plus after the end of World War II, that totally changed and shifted all of, global geopolitical politics and society and societies. So what we had was, at the end of World War II, 1945, a pair of Allied peace conferences at Yalta and Potsdam determined the fate of Germany's territories. Germany was the defeated, Nazi Germany was the defeated combatant in World War II, and the allies, the principal allies, were the United States, Great Britain, France, and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the Russians. So those four main allies got together and conducted these peace conferences at Yalta and then Potsdam to determine the fate of Germany and Germany's territories, what they had conquered and what they had taken by force from the rest of Europe. They split the defeated nation into four distinct Allied occupation zones. So four distinct zones. The eastern part of the country went to the Soviet Union, while the western part, and again, it ended up being geographic after the partition of it. So four equal, or not quite geographically perfectly equal portions, but four portions were each allocated to the Soviet Union, United States, France, and Great Britain. So four pieces allocated, and what ended up happening was that the most eastern portion ended up being the Soviet Union's. The three other portions of the Allies, the Western Allies, basically ended up becoming what would be in the future West Germany. And then, of course, East Germany would be the Soviet-controlled portion. So it ended up being two out of the four. So that was immediately after the end of World War II. Western part, United States, Great Britain, and then eventually France. So August 13th, 1961, fast forward to 1961, the communist government of the GDR, the German Democratic Republic, or East Germany, that was the GDR for, again, I'm having some fun here tonight because some of you guys, hopefully, I think I'm going to make some of you guys watch this, some of my students, ex-students, and some of my younger wrestlers. I'm going to make you watch it. It's a history lesson that you need to get if you haven't gotten it anywhere else, and I'm going to give it to you. So 1961, the GDR, which was that eastern portion that was controlled by the Soviets, communist Russia. German Democratic Republic, the GDR, East Germany, began to build a barbed wire fence and concrete called the Anti-Fascister Schutzwall, or the anti-fascist bulwark, all right, to keep out. That was the genesis of it. Began to build the barbed wire between East and West Berlin. So they were basically they were putting up a barrier between their portion and the western portion with the Allies. The intent was to keep Western fascists out of East Germany and undermining the socialist state. But it primarily served the objective of stemming mass defections from east to west, because the reality was people were trying to leave communist East Germany to get to the West. They called us the fascists, believe it or not. We were the fascist West. So they began to build barriers with the intent, or at least the PR strategy, of saying that they were trying to keep the fascists out of the people's area, the socialist area of East Germany, when the reality was they were doing it not so much to keep us out. That was, by the way, a consequence of it, but more so and specifically to keep East Germans in, so they could not leave the socialist state. All right? So the Berlin Wall stood until November 9, 1989. We'll get to that in a bit. After that period of time that went by, and that was from 61 up to 89, so 38 roughly years that went by, nearly 4 decades, and in that intervening time, that large look, about 4 decades worth, it was the crystallization of what the modern world became, the East versus West. If not in thought, then definitely in practice. It was that. Militarily, socially, culturally, academically, athletically. We can talk for hours on the way the Soviet Union developed their athletes, the way the GDR, the East German Republic, or excuse me, the GDR, the German Democratic Republic, East Germany, developed their athletes. Spartan as all hell and not much freedom, but very, very strict and rigid, and they developed an athlete machine that did real well in the Olympics. A lot of people don't know about that. There were times, basically the Soviet Union used to clean house at the Olympics because they were literally a machine to succeed at the Olympics. And so was the GDR, the German Democratic Republic. So all of these things were part and parcel. And I have said on air before, and I'll reiterate here for a split second, that the United States was and I still believe is. I tweeted something the other day with specificity, because, well, actually yesterday, because it was November 9th. And this date does have relevance for me, again, because I feel it. I feel it a little more so than most, because I do feel like in my small part, I was a part of that wall coming down. I served at a time when the very fact that our service dictated that we were strong as the United States in the face of a strong Soviet Union. And eventually they broke. So from 45, from the end of World War II, and for every president that came after, Harry Truman, Dwight Eisenhower, John F. Kennedy, Lyndon Johnson, Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, and then up to George Bush, the first George Bush. All of those presidents, every single one of those presidents, they absolutely knew walking in to the office what the responsibility was in terms of foreign policy, and our strategy, our focus, and our intent with how we viewed the world. We all knew what it was. We knew what it was. Even if we weren't presidents, we all knew. We were freedom-loving. We were democratic. We believed in freedom of speech, freedom of the press, not a totalitarian state, not autocracy, the ability to stand up and speak your piece as long as you're not hurting someone else. That's what we stood for. That's what we stood for. Okay, and it was known and understood. And because of that, we outlasted through our freedom of speech and our Bill of Rights and our exporting of those ideals to other countries that were fledgling in terms of their democratic ideals, countries that had never known what democracy was. We helped them become democratic. We supported them, and they grew, and democracy flourished and grew in the face of communist ideology, in the face of what the Soviet Union was pushing out. We got into wars because of it. Vietnam, whether you agree with that or not, there's easy on either side. But we clearly understood what our role was, from the president down to the little dude getting out of class in 6th grade or the kid graduating high school. We knew they were the enemy. We knew we were for freedom. We were for democracy. We were for people having the right and the express intent of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We understood that. We knew that. And from Harry Truman, right up to Ronald Reagan, who boldly and emphatically, with all the abilities of a man who had been an actor and had the ability to convey a message, if not an image, but communicated, the great communicator, communicated the message, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall. Tear down that wall. Because that's not for freedom and democracy. Walls are not. That was the genesis of that speech. And lo and behold, after President Reagan was out of office, so this is, 88, he serves to 88 into early 89, and you get to November 9, 1989, and his successor, George H.W. Bush, another person. And I'm going to do this, like whether you agree with everything, because there are things about all the presidents that you can like or dislike. Same here. I'm critical of all of them. I really am. But they all knew what the job was. They all knew what their role was, and they all knew what they had to do, or at the very least, they all knew what they had to do to make sure that the other side didn't get any stronger. Okay? And how do I know they succeeded? Because the Berlin Wall went down, Communist Russia fell, dissoluted. All of what would be, or what was, Eastern Europe, communist Eastern Europe, broke up into small pieces and factions. We won't go too far forward, but all of those satellite states of what was once the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the Russian people, the Russian army, the Russian empire, in many ways, was broken up. And out of that breakup, we have all of these new, young, fledgling states and nations. And many of them moved to democracy. And many of them we've helped and we've supported and we've helped grow. And in many ways, through our leadership, through our example, the shining example, the one on the hill, and that was a Ronald Reagan thing too, I'm lifting freely tonight, But that was a Ronald Reagan thing too, the shining city on the hill. When people look out in the world, all over the planet, and they want an example as to what to be like in terms of their people, their nation, their state, their grouping, they look to the United States. That's the way it's been for decades, since at least the end of World War II. They look to us, and we help, and we have intervened, sometimes good, sometimes not. But my point is, and I'm going to get back to what I just said a little second earlier here, how do I know that it was right? Because we're still the United States, we're still free, we still have our Constitution, and the communist empire crumbled. It crumbled and insidiously disappeared, and now it's working its way back. We'll get to that in a sec. But you get the point. It broke up, and now you have all of these other peoples and countries looking for self-determination, looking for the ability to live life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, to raise children, to live in a free capitalist free market society, the ability to make money and live a decent life, or better, maybe, if you work hard enough and you do a little bit more right, because that's the capitalist intent at the core of it from Adam Smith. But all of that to now, all of that to now. So let me give you a little bit more background to why I will say, at least for now, there's probably more, but at least within the context of our overall population, I'm a little more uniquely qualified than the average American, again, because I was there. I went out and ate on the German economy. I went to clubs, went and had fun night and weekends with German locals in my area. And I was there as it happened. And I was there till roughly 1992, up until 1992. So I saw that window from 89 for at least another 2-3 years, 2 years, 2.5 years, where I saw the changes in the German people that were once West Germany, East Germany, becoming one Germany. I was there. And I'm proud to say that I got to view that. I got to see a people reconciling and enmeshing with each other after decades of imposed separation, not through their own choice, not through freedom, but through oppression and authoritarianism. I saw that firsthand. So forgive me if I chew some of you guys out a little bit on my page if you don't understand that. It isn't entirely that I monolithically want to go after you. It's simply because it hits me personally when I see things that are not lessons learned in that 30-year window, that maybe those mistakes that led to the initial are resurfacing and re-emerging in other forms, but they still have the same smell and the same stink to them. They absolutely do. And that's the genesis of the reason and the rationale why I wanted to do tonight. It wasn't just to remind you of November 9, 1989, and hey, that was cool back then. But here's history. Here's history. Learning the mistakes of the past to not repeat those mistakes into your future. And I can say with absolute crystal clarity as I look you in the eye now, that we are making some of those mistakes. We are making mistakes that we made 40, 50, 60 years ago. They are resurfacing now. Now, when I say we, I don't mean like all of us, like uniformly, you tonight, that person there, but as a whole, as a country, as a society, and as a global society. We are making those mistakes as some of the very things that led to the formation of a communist state, the very things that led to oppression and tyranny, authoritarianism. They are current right now. I can tell you that explicitly. I see them. And I see them with the eye of someone who's seen it before. It's been a long time, but I haven't forgotten. I've got a memory that elephants come back to for their memory problems. So it is going on and it is current now. So November 9, 1989, I was a brand new private. I had done a semester at Fresno City College in Fresno, California. I wrestled, did a semester, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. School was boring to me, not because I was dumb, but because I wanted something more. I needed something more. So I did logically what had been bugging me and digging in on my psyche, my conscience for many, many years. I had always wondered and questioned what would it be like, or what could I do if I were, in the Army, if I served. It was always there, and there was no way I was not going to. And so lo and behold, come early 1989, I enlisted, to my mom's detriment, kind of, to dismay. And I was out of basic, I want to say, by sometime in, June, somewhere in June, I was out of basic, came home for a little bit on leave, and then I was deployed and got on a big plane and was stationed in the Federal Republic of Germany, which is the FRG West Germany, GDR East Germany. So the Federal Republic of Germany in Stuttgart, Gerpingen in particular, the military community just outside Stuttgart. And so I was there just around the summer into the early fall, and then we got to November, and then this happened, and then this happened. So that was cool. I shudder to think what it would have been like if I would have never joined, if I would have never chosen to serve. I wouldn't have gotten to see this. I wouldn't have gotten to be there, and it wouldn't have colored, and as I said on my page, crystallized my beliefs in the United States as the global city shining on the hill, and the number one exporter and supporter of freedoms, all of them. All those freedoms that we take for granted, all of those freedoms that you young people right now, I'm going to get on you a little bit, even though I got unbeloved and support for you, that you take for granted, that you get a little lazy about, that you don't even give a damn or concern yourself with because they've just been always there for you. Or some of you that are older, my age and older, that you've taken for granted because you don't have to do anything about it anymore because you've lived with it for an entire life, and you've taken for granted those things that were given to you and handed to you, and you've forgotten that those things are not free, that they do cost. They cost blood, they cost manpower, they cost energy, they cost time, they cost effort, and yeah, they cost money too. They cost money too. They cost all of that. Cost military manpower, cost military weaponry. All of those things, and I will say it, if those things had not been done, the Berlin Wall may never have gone down. There may have continued to be a union of Soviet Socialist republics. It might not have just collapsed under its own economic meltdown. What if they had more resources, more exposure? What if they had gobbled up more of the planet? The United States did World War II and then went back home and never got involved again because Great Britain could not have done it and fought them single-handedly. France could not have done it. No other country, no other people could have done what the United States did for decades to stand up to the Soviet Union, to stand up to authoritarianism, to stand up to communism, to stand up for freedom, to stand up for democracy. Now, if it sounds a little cheesy, it may be, but I really don't give a damn because it's all true. It's all true. How do I know it's true? Because we're sitting here talking about it instead of complaining about what we don't have. We're here still talking about it. All of those things in the former fashion that each one of those presidents that I named prior, right up to George H.W. Bush, each one of those men did exactly what they needed to do. Whether they were right or wrong about other issues, so be it. But they got the job done. They got the job done. And November 9, 1989 happened. It happened. So what I want to do before I move on into the second portion of our show, I'm going to give you some good images that I went digging in. So I spent a lot of time thinking about tonight's show all week, just listening. And I think I've mentioned to you that I don't want to do a show, especially the Sunday shows, where I see and I copy, paste, and then regurge what I saw or heard on other shows. I can guarantee you that after we're done tonight with this particular show, the Fall of the Berlin Wall special with Supermex, after tonight, you can go back and try to find something that was quite like mine, but you're not. Because I went digging for something like mine and I didn't find it. I'm deliberately doing something other than what I saw all week. And by the way, it was yesterday, so you're not going to hear much about it anymore anyway. I'm wrapping it up. So I know that for a fact. You will get something, and it already is, something uniquely different. By the way, a lot of the talk shows, cable shows, news shows, they don't have a lot of veterans. Now watch this. They don't have a lot of veterans talking about this topic, 30 years. They have experts, people that study history. I do that too, by the way. People that study history, and then they talk about it. If they do, they have or they invite a flag officer, a general officer, an admiral, a brigadier general, or a four-star general, and they come and tell, and that's good too, by the way. But you know what they don't have? They don't have an enlisted man. There was a former infantry soldier of the year in his unit, enlisted, in the trenches, ground troops, boots. You don't see that anymore. Not like this. And not with the quality at the top end intellectually in terms of knowing the material and knowing the historical context of what it is we're doing tonight. So that I do know. So let's do this. So I've prepared a group of images for you tonight that kind of, like, I went digging through like hundreds. And these are the ones that I wanted. These are the ones that conveyed the message. So we're going to scroll them up. KP's going to pull them up, and I'm going to go through them and just say a bit about them as we move forward. Let's go ahead and pull those up now. All right, so this is the first one. So this is like at the beginning, after the announcement was made that people would now be free to come and go as they chose in the Federal Republic of Germany, or in this case, the GDR, the German Democratic Republic, would be free to come and go. So in an organic way, it was really weird. Like, again, I wasn't there, but I had people that were telling me about it after they had been there, Germans, and we talked about it, when I was a young guy at my station, where I was stationed, and they said that just like people just wanted to, they couldn't believe it, they just wanted to get on the wall. So they started climbing on the wall. This is earlier in the day. There's still sunlight here, and they just started getting on the wall. Let's go ahead and pull that next one up, Kippy. Okay, and here's an example. So it's beginning to get dark, and people are just wanting to get on the wall. It's all these Germans that, I'm going to say it again, in an organic fashion, just like spontaneously, they just wanted to be together, do things together, and cheer and whatever. And so they start helping each other up. And you see that one, it says freedom, right? Because this is actually on the wall. This is legit images of the actual time. These people were helping each other up, congregating together in celebration that, hey, there is freedom here to go and come as we choose. Next. There you go. They're literally climbing up, like, look at us, look at us. So it's beginning to get dark now. And so as this evening wore on, this started to happen organically all over this portion of Berlin. Go ahead and go to the next one. Yeah, and so, I mean, hey, this is basic. This is definitely 80s, by the way. If you guys don't know, look at the clothes, right? Look at the clothes and the hairstyles. That is clearly 80s. There's even some acid wash jeans, a lot of jeans, actually. But by the way, so Europeans love Levi's, or at least back then. I don't know so much now. But back then, they loved Levi's. That was like a hot item to get, and they would pay a lot of money, like 2 to 3 times the amount that you would normally get them in the States. So here's a group and they began singing and just being joyous and, having a good time together, celebrating this change. I don't even think they entirely knew exactly what it all was. They just knew, like, hey, this is not, I'm actually going to get up here and I'm not going to get shot. That was unique to them. Next. There's the flag, black, red, and gold. And we're into the evening now, squarely. And again, people just congregating. I was told by some of the Germans that I knew that people were literally just coming out of the house, coming out of their places, and just, moving like this big, a big amoeba moving, this mass of humans moving to the wall just to sit and talk and celebrate all at once, like this one moment in time that they literally been waiting for. Some of them weren't even alive when the wall was built. But here they are, and they have the ability to sit with their fellow Germans, East and West. They're all the same people, but they were divided by a wall. Even though humanity dictates otherwise, they were the same people. Let's go to the next, KP. That's a good black and white there. You see, like, it just started getting bigger, bigger, bigger. I think at some point there was like no more room up on the wall in some spots, in some places, but they just started, breaking out and having a good old time. So give me the next one. That's a good image there. I think that's the Brandenburg Gate in the background with that wall. You can see all the graffiti on it. Okay, give me the next one. All right, so this one, for those of you guys in my Facebook group, this was up. This is actually in my Facebook group as of yesterday. This is at that time when people, you're sitting there, you're happy, you've congregated, you're celebrating something that you know is something unique and different, that you're not getting shot at by, guards, and somebody just made that decision. Who knows? I don't know, but I think that would be like, that's a historic moment. Somebody just decided that, okay, we're on it, now let's tear this son of a bitch down. And so somebody grabbed the pickaxe and started going to work. And this is an iconic image for me, and there are a lot of others, mind you. If you just go to Bing or Google and you type in "Fall of the Berlin Wall," you'll get various images like this of people on the wall, around the wall, congregating, or destroying the wall, tearing the damn wall down, as President Ronald Reagan said, tear this wall down. It wasn't the leadership that did, it was people that did. And there you go, there's a breath of fresh air, right? You give people enough rationale and reason, and they will act. In this case, this young dude went to work with a pick and started tearing this damn wall down. It's one of my favorite images. Go to the next one, KP. All right, so we're still in the evening, and at this point, they're starting. I want to hold this one for 1 second. Check out the graffiti, and the stuff that was on here. Just people, and this is stuff built up over years, many, many years of graffiti and expressing, who they were, what they. You got a swastika on there. There's a Hitler piece there. Blick, I don't know what Blick is, but you just got, expression of frustration, anger, sadness. You can run the gamut, but people will express themselves, preferably in a good form or fashion, hopefully not in a bad. But you cannot hold that. You cannot hold. And I'm going to get deep with you here. You cannot hold that well of humanity from coming to the surface. You cannot. You can try, and it's been done throughout time and throughout history. My rule as a history student and as a history teacher, you can try, but you will always lose that battle if you try to keep people down too damn long. You will. It's inevitable. And how do I know that? Because we're talking about it now, and it's never lasted. It has never lasted. Some people get it done for a longer period of time. Some states, some ideologies, some beliefs can hold their people down, but it doesn't last forever. It absolutely does not. It's best to come out and get out of that mentality before it's too late. Before it's too late. Lying, cheating, stealing, harming is not good, and it will not last forever, because if it isn't the one, there'll be two others that fight back in whatever form. So this last piece here. So yeah, that at this point in the evening, they had begun to tear the wall down or break it as much as they can. And this is just regular people, ladies and gentlemen, regular folk, grabbing picks and axes and chisels and hammers and just started beating at the damn wall. Next one. And that is kind of cool, because you have people, military guards, inviting one over into the other side, whereas these people before were enemies and would just as soon shoot each other, as opposed to extending a hand and welcoming that guard over into the other territory. And it's a really cool image. I'm a military guy, but military people are human too, by the way. We have to subvert those emotions and subvert those ideas, but we do have feelings. We do feel things. And I thought this was a really cool one. So somebody blasted a hole, tore down a big chunk of the wall, and you have a guard inviting counterpart from the other side over into this other portion of Berlin. I thought that was really cool. Next one. That's funny as hell. That one's funny. So basically what you got here is, it looks like, I want to say East German guards. I don't know. It might be the other. I don't know. But so there's a portion torn down of the wall, right? That's a portion torn down. And they just break out the booze, baby. You break out the booze. You set up shop that looks like a makeshift bar. And people just start, because it's a celebration now. And this was late, deep into the evening, and I did have people tell me that, they partied all night. They broke out drink, and they celebrated together because this is something they were never able to do, and it was the first time in the history of their people. Some of these guards, by the way, look at how young they are. They weren't even alive when the damn wall went up. And now this wall is down. And they break out the, the spirits and the booze, and they get to enjoy with the people from the other side, literally on the spot. That's spontaneous as hell, and that's the human will expressing itself for what is right and wrong, in my opinion. Next. There you go. So I think that into the next day, and then again thereafter for I don't even know how long, but I would imagine days, weeks, maybe more, maybe even now. But basically, people just started tearing down chunks of the wall. And this is a true story. I actually had a guy, when I was at a club one night, try to sell me, and this was like a week or two after, try to sell me a piece of the Berlin Wall. He charged me 100 marks. Back then they had Deutschmarks. It wasn't the euro, but it was the Deutschmark. He wanted to charge me $100 if he gave me a piece of the wall. I was like, nah, I don't think so. That's too much money. 100 marks back then, probably, I think a mark was like 1.2 or 3 to every dollar. So not quite 100 American dollars, probably more like 80 something or $90. But I'm like, hell no, it's just a piece of concrete and rock, right? But that was an industry. People were selling pieces of the Berlin Wall, and people would buy pieces of the Berlin Wall. And for some, just to keep as a souvenir and as a not so subtle, if not friendly reminder of a different time, a time that was gone, but, lest we forget, correct? That's the whole point to the show tonight. So here you have two young guys just, taking hammer and chisel and, knocking down pieces of the wall. Let's go to the next. Look at this young dude. I like this little picture. Look at this little dude go. You wonder how he's going to tear down that big old wall, right? But can't stop the human spirit, can't stop the human will. And he's got his little hammer, he's got his little pick and chisel, and he's going to work, getting in on, I would imagine what, he may not even know what it is. Look how young he is. This kid can't be more than 10, 11, 12, something in that range. But he's a piece of history, and for posterity, here he is. So he's probably, depending on that age, probably in his 30s, 40s, maybe early 40s, somewhere in there. But that guy has a priceless memory of that image right there. And that was young people. Everybody got in on the action. Let's go to the next. Yeah, there you go. There's soldiers breaking that down too. I like that one. They're breaking down pieces of the wall, knocking it and coming through to get to their counterparts, the other German people, no longer East and West, but just German people, to unite and to exist with each other. Next. Now this is going toward back end. Yeah, so there you go. They're flying the flag. You have a dad and a child looking on, clearly emotional, and probably just absolutely cannot believe. Again, this guy right here is probably young enough, like I was at that point, young enough to not even know when the wall went up. Not alive when the wall was constructed and built. Done by people before them. Done by generations past. And now this young guy gets to see this end of a not so pleasant era with his fellow countrymen, real ethnically at least, German people, now free and the ability to be united under one common flag. There's the German flag for you on the right-hand side, waving it. This is by this time the next day, and I would imagine massive chunks of that wall were being torn out. Let's go to the next, and that's the last. So this is cool. I wanted to finish my little video montage here. This is a look at one of the main autobahns leading out of Germany into the west, out of East Germany. Massive amounts of people left East Germany. They wanted out. They were free. You and I take that for granted. You and I don't understand that. And pray God willing, we'll never know what that feels like. Never. Lest we forget, yes? That's why you need your history lesson. That's why you need to understand the process of what came before you, so that we do not live that ugly process again. But, thousands upon thousands of East German people fled into the West And not just into Germany, but other parts of Europe. They went everywhere, just to, in some cases, just to get as far away from what was, the oppression that was East Germany, just to get as far away from it. And I mean, think about that on a human level. You just want to get away. You don't ever want to be around that again. You don't ever want that to possibly happen to you again. And you don't ever want to be near the reminder, the physicality of the reminder of what you had once had to live through and endure. And you had thousands of people leaving. And, the rest is quite literally history. We now have a West Germany that is now Germany. It's not just one portion, it is a whole. The German people are together, at least in that respect. And, crazy things, but to where we are now, 30 years later, they are one of, if not the premier industrial and I want to say capitalistic societies in all of Europe. So they made that transition from communism and that form of oppression to full market capitalism and freedom and democracy. And they are a strong government. And I would prefer that we keep them as strong allies because it's just in our interest. But they are a strong, surviving group of people that only 30 years ago, and I say only because I know the full scope of history, only 30 years ago, when it was entirely the other. They were an oppressed people. They were not free. They did not have the ability to be who they fully were. Now they do. That's what democracy will do for you. That's what freedoms do for you. It allows that person the ability to create, to think freely, to be more than what they were in an isolated and stifled condition or setting. That's what we are not. And I'm going to say this again before we finish up here in a little bit, but I want to say this again. That is what we are not. And that is what Germany no longer is. And they're a strong democracy. They've been a strong ally with us. And they are a strong economy, market capitalist economy. And they do their part, not as much as we have, obviously. Again, we're number one. We lead. We should be leading the world. But Germany has done more than its share, and I'm going to guess and I'm going to imagine that if we continue to keep them as our ally and bolster them, support them, encourage them in their freedom-loving democratic ideals, that they will become more involved, more engaged in helping the rest of the world become the same. See how that works? So let me do this before we get toward the back end of what we're doing here. I've been internalizing over the last, 2, 3, 4 years more. I've been internalizing what I hear in terms of what some people in our country don't like about the fact that the United States, and I will say this, the United States has been taken advantage of. We do get taken advantage of. That's an absolute truism. I'll be the first to state that. However, it almost becomes a binary choice. It's almost binary. Now, take that back. It is binary. It is a binary choice. If the United States, and many of you know my line, if the United States builds its own wall, I think you know where I'm at after this show, we build a wall and we get behind it and we close off the rest of the world. That is not a recipe for success. That is not a recipe for democracy. That is not a recipe for democratic ideals, freedoms, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not just for ourselves, but for everybody. In my world, in my perfect world, we have an entire globe of freedom-loving, democratic ideals. That's what I want. You're like, oh, you're crazy. Maybe I am. Maybe I am. Do you know why? Because I've seen the alternative. I've seen the other side. I know what it is to not. I've seen people fleeing oppression, fleeing destruction, fleeing in fear of their lives because they did not have those freedoms. So yeah, maybe I am a little crazy. But I'm going to run with that crazy. So in my world, we are the United States. We are the principal exporter and supporter of freedom and democracy. If we give that up, if we tuck tail and run, and if we cede over, C-E-D-E, that leadership role in advocating for democratic ideals, principles, and governance, then who the hell is going to do it? I mean, seriously, deadly seriously. Let's build a wall, let's hide behind it, let's not engage or be involved with the rest of the world. You want to do that? Go ahead. But who the hell else is going to make sure that all those other countries are playing safe and clean? Who's going to make sure that those other countries are not gobbling up the rest of the world and renewing the lessons we should have learned 30 damn years ago? Democracy is precious. Oppression and tyranny will act in the absence of strong, freedom-loving, democratic principles and ideals. They gain strength. Many of you guys have watched my show. Some of you have been a long time now. I'm dropping a dime on you tonight. This is a history lesson for you. If we don't do that damn job, nobody else can do it as good as us, or maybe even will. Everybody will do their own damn thing. And you know who's at the advantage there? The bad guys are at the advantage there. Not the good guys. Not the good guys. The bad guys are at the advantage. The good guys need somebody strong, somebody principled, somebody with a clear vision and a clear message of ideals and principles. And if we don't have that, then the bad guys take over. And I'm going to say it here for tonight as I wrap up a little bit before we get to this last clip I'm going to play for you. If we don't stand, if the United States doesn't stand, then those bad guys take over. And maybe we could survive because we're the United States. Maybe we can live a little bit longer and do our thing. But it won't last forever. Because sooner or later, those bad guys will keep getting bigger, keep getting stronger. And then maybe they get together and there's 4 or 5 of them. And then we have a load of trouble. And then when there's no other country or place to gobble up on the planet, we'll be left. And instead of being actively engaged and involved in the resourcing and the abilities throughout the globe, resourcing, material, human capital, we will stand alone. We will stand alone because we will no longer have our allies. We're already there, by the way. We're losing allies. We will no longer have our allies. And I don't care who you are or what you think. The United States cannot stand against everyone by themselves. No one can do that. You want to know the ones that have tried? Go pick up a history book on Western civilization and further. And you'll find all the countries that thought they were that, I'll say it, thought they were that badass. They're no longer the world's premier power. They've all taken their turn and moved on. And my fear and my concern is that that'll be us if we're not careful. And that's an absolute truism. That's based on empirical data over 5,000 years of recorded history. That's a fact. That's a fact. Here are my concerns. So I think this one I'm going to do. I'm going to throw KP for a curve. I didn't think about this before. Do you remember when I sent the email on the Syria piece? You still have that? Remember we did the little clip of them, of our people leaving? See if you can find it. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to show you a clip as we did the Syria piece. And by the way, I got a lot of compliments on the seriousness of Syria. I got really good compliments on that one. They loved the way we did it. So there were images, video clips in that particular show that has images of the United States, us, leaving Syria in the middle of the night. And what happened as we made that announcement and we turned our back on our own allies. That's a fact, by the way. There's no disclaimer. There's no dispute here. We did that. We turned our back on the people that were fighting for us. Notice I say not just fighting with us. The Kurdish people were fighting for us against ISIS. We trained them, and then we sent them to die. And a lot of them did. Over 10,000 plus Kurds have died fighting ISIS for us. I want you to remember that. Okay, I want you to remember that because the way I grew up in my back street, I didn't throw chingazos and run away and let the other guy fight for me. I threw chingazos with that guy. And if we both went down, we went down together. We went down together. But I sure as hell didn't leave him there to fight for me and leave him when the getting was good. That's not America. That's not me. That's not my America, by the way. That is not. So we left the Kurds, and I'm bringing it up in a total scope here of what we're talking about tonight. 30 years later, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, where are we now? Where are we now? 30 years later, after that abject lesson of freedom and democracy. Got it? Okay, let's pull that up. This is the United States leaving its allies and going back, supposedly, because we're supposed to go home and we're not getting involved in foreign stuff anymore, right? And I got to tell you, this broke my heart. This hurt me. Not me personally, but it hurt me for the people in those vehicles right now. They were in the fight, and they're running from the fight. They're leaving the fight. And you heard what I said, because I can tell you right now, those guys in those vehicles, that's what they feel. That's what they're feeling as they did that. Images of the backside of our people leaving the fight. Okay, so that was a number of weeks ago. We did the piece on Syria. You know where I'm at with it. I'm going to be clear again. Do I believe we should be getting involved in everything all over the planet? No. That's a simple one. Now stay with me. For those of you guys that are still with me, you're going to get the meat and potatoes of the most important thing you're going to hear from me tonight as an expert. Absolutely not. Do I believe we should be wasting money on things that don't pertain to us specifically or don't advance our own interest, and not in a selfish way, but in a global democratic way? Hell no. Absolutely not. But that doesn't mean you uniformly and monolithically 180 degrees go the other way and leave the world and go hide behind your wall. That is not the U.S. That is not the United States. We are not at our best when we are running and hiding. We don't do that. We don't do that. So that is the United States leaving Syria, and the rationale from some of my friends, including people on my own page, told me, Richard, we shouldn't be involved in all these wars. I said, I'm not saying we should be involved in all these wars. But that one was clear. This one was simple. Let me run real quick here, and I don't want to spend too much time because I want to keep this one a nice tight hour. Where are we at, KP? About an hour? Close. Okay, I'm not too bad. I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. I got to get better for KP. I'm bad about keeping them all damn night. But what I want to make sure that we're absolutely clear about here is we used, and you're like, well, everybody does it. You're right. Does the end justify the means? We used the Kurdish people and others. It wasn't just the Kurds, by the way. We used the Kurdish people to fight ISIS for us. And now watch this. And as somebody somewhere down the road is going to get me later and they're going to use this as a soundbite, and I'm not going to give a damn because I don't care. We don't do the PC thing here that way. We used the Kurdish people. They fought for us. They fought for us, bled for us, died for us, 10,000 plus to fight ISIS. And for the low cost, watch this, America, the low cost of roughly 1,000 troops in location. Yes, you heard what I said, low cost. Okay? We're not expending an army. That is a very good amount of people to train 60,000 Kurds and finish ISIS. At least in the physical sense, because they're not finished. Let me correct myself. They're not finished. But at least in the physical caliphate, we beat them down. When I say we, I didn't say the United States. I said us and our Kurdish allies who did the dirty work. They fought for us. They are the ones that deserve the credit for shedding their blood in their own region, by the way, their own homeland. They fought for us. They bled for us. They died for us. And they helped diminish ISIS and their physical capacity as a nation state. And then we left them. Because what people told me was, well, we're going to bring our boys home. So watch this. You're going to like this. America, do you ever realize that when you say, oh, we're going to bring our boys home, Did it ever occur to you that some of your boys might want to stay? You like that, KP? Because it's the damn truth. I'm going to say it again. You're going to want to rewind this later. America, did it ever occur to you while you're out there feeling rah-rah about yourself, let's bring our boys home, our boys need to come home. Did it ever occur to you that your boys might want to stay and fight? Never occurred to you, did it? So, for all my brothers and sisters that wear the uniform, that have sworn the oath, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Some of us like to fight, especially for a damn good reason. If I were old enough, hell yeah, I'd do it again. I would do it again in a heartbeat. Wouldn't think twice. But I want you to remember that. While you, America, are saying, hey, let's bring our boys home, let's do this, let's do that. You need to realize that there's a reason why we're there. And you need to realize that some of those boys like it. They like to fight. They love the obligation, the responsibility, the duty, and the service, and they see directly what it is to not fight. That's why when you hear people say, because we have Veterans Day tomorrow, by the way, Veterans Day tomorrow, that freedom is not free, it's because some of us are willing to give ourselves for that freedom. And all I've ever asked is don't question my desire to serve and don't question my loyalty to country. I don't need somebody telling me, thank you for your service. I've never asked anybody to do that, ever. I'm respectful when some of you do that, and I appreciate it. Make sure we're clear. But I've never asked for it. All I've ever asked, and I will ask on the behalf of my fellow brothers and sisters in arms, is that you don't think that we're doing something crazy or evil when we're acting out of loyalty to country. That's all we ask, is that you believe that when I do something insignificant, it's because there's a damn reason and it's important for this country. That's all I'm asking. That's not a lot. But yeah, you're going to laugh about that other. Some of us like to fight. There's a segment in your population, America, I hate to break it to you, but there's a segment that likes to fight. And it's a good thing that we have a service that goes and allows those guys to go fight somewhere and do their thing in advancing or furthering democratic principles, ideals, and governance, being the shining city on the hill. Think about that. I need you to think about that because that's what we're wrapped in right now. So I showed you that clip of us leaving 1,000, the bargain basement price of 1,000 soldiers in location. They're not all the same. There's communications, there's intel, there's infantry, there's special ops. You got them all. It's a unit, a tight-knit group of people that are furthering the interest of the United States and democracy. 1,000 people. And ISIS has lost its physical capability as a state. Pretty damn good deal. Don't pull out now while we're closing the deal and allow Russia in, Turkey in, and others in, and I'm going to say this again, and turn our back on our damn allies, because that is not what we do. Now, I'm not here. This particular night was not about taking shots at the president, but if the president were right here with me right now, I'll tell him he's wrong as hell. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Directly, I'll say it. Doesn't mean I hate the guy? No, absolutely not. You have to be able to question leadership, and you have to be able to question decisions, because that's America, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we do. Hate to break it to you, but it's your God-given responsibility and right under the Constitution to correct and question leadership. That's what you're supposed to do. And in this particular case, he's beyond wrong. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Trust your generals, Mr. President. Trust your generals. They know what they're doing. Okay, so that was us leaving. And if the line was, oh, we're not going to be in foreign wars, we're bringing our boys home. Well, let's show this clip, KP. Mega Mind producer. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the United States. There's the flags. This is a Spec Force group, Special Forces group, and some others that Oh, wait a minute, they're not home. They didn't come home. I thought we were bringing the boys home. Wrong. The boys didn't come home. The boys are standing there guarding an oil field. That's about as stark a contrast as I can paint for you in terms of our foreign policy. That's about as stark as I can paint for you. So if your line or your argument is, oh, these globalists and they're doing evil to us, let's bring them all home, let's bring all our soldiers home. Well, that doesn't look like bringing our soldiers home. There's your argument right out the window. And by the way, that's not a lie, because I don't tell lies, I tell the damn truth. I'm stuck with George Washington a little bit. I'm stuck with my dog GW, all right? I like telling the truth. Funny how those presidents work, right? Honest Abe, GW. Telling you the truth. That is going on right now. Those soldiers did not come home from Syria. They turned around and went back in to guard oil fields. And that's where those soldiers are right now. So I don't want to hear that, because it's garbage. And I have exceptionally hyper low tolerance for garbage and BS. Consider that. Now, how does this all tie to what the genesis of tonight's show was? My point is simple. The United States is the shining city on the hill. We are the best example of freedom and democracy on this planet. On this planet. If we don't fight for those principles and ideals, then this world's in a load of trouble. By the way, it kind of is right now as I'm watching it. Next week when we come back, I'm going to do a wrap-up of our global commitments and foreign policy. Next week, I'm going to wrap it up. It'll be too long tonight, and I don't want to do that because I like where we are right now in terms of the time. But we'll get to that. I'm using the Syria example as an example for not tolerating lies. Oh, by the way, we've sent 3,000 more troops to Saudi Arabia. Now, how does that gel with get our people out of the Middle East and bring them home? You know, I'm going to take shots at that because it's wrong. But more importantly, I've said already, I don't believe that we should close up shop, build a wall, and go hide behind it and let the world do its own thing. Wrong answer. There are such things as economies, societies, militaries. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't understand that going forward from right now, I'm going to say it to you directly so you understand with the lesson plan tonight as Supermex finishes the evening for you. We have to fight for that, because if we don't, no one else has the capability to do so. And the rest of the world will be an uglier, much more dangerous, much more chaotic, and much more, then I'll say it, corrupt, crime-ridden, oppressive, authoritarian place. That is what you are looking at when America does not lead anymore. When America does not lead. Now, some of you, and I'm not telling you what to think. You're watching my show. You're taking my opinion. You can be against it. Matter of fact, I welcome it. I always have. That's how you know I'm telling you the damn truth. But I'm for leadership. I am for leadership. I am 100% for leading this planet. Does it mean getting taken advantage of? Hell no. Does it mean taking advantage? Yes. In some cases, yes. Does it mean using others to advocate and advance the interests of democracy and a liberal, egalitarian, democratic society? Yes. Absolutely yes. We need to lead. If we don't lead, this thing could be up in a mess. It's already going there. We need to lead. From now on, watch this, from now on, this will be my last quote for the night for you. The United States cannot get by anymore without electing presidents and leadership that have a clear, strong, and understanding, comprehensive vision of how to go forward leading this planet. Foreign policy. We rarely elect qualified, really good foreign policy people anymore, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to pay a price for it. I don't even give a damn about the economy. There's a soundbite. You could take it away. Our economy is going to be strong because the American people are strong, not because the president tweets or does something. Because we're strong. But our foreign policy, in our relationships with the rest of this planet, we need a leader. We need to elect presidents from now on that clearly have an articulated, comprehensive, and long-term vision of what this planet is supposed to look like with us leading it. You heard what I said. I'm going to piss off people on the left and the right. I don't care. Hang out with me in the middle. We need to lead. That's about as crystal clear as I can get for you. We need to lead. If we don't, this world becomes an uglier place. We're on the way there now. You may be with me, you may be with me, I don't know. But that's where I'm at. And I think you all know I have rationale behind it. I don't spit things because it makes me feel good, or I watch somebody's show, or take a headline off an article. I read, and I've read, and I've lived this example. Last thing for you tonight. November 9, 1989. I will say that was America at one of its greatest points in our history. We beat the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics through perseverance, through discipline, through military buildup, through economies, through culture, through a variety of ways. We beat the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. We ended the Cold War. And no other country could have won that war. It had to be us. That's leadership. That's leadership. Americans, my fellow Americans, that's leadership. That is one of the greatest moments in our history, 243 years strong. That is one of our greatest moments in our history. I'll never forget it because I was in Germany at the time. And I'm glad to have been a very, very, very small part of it. I'm asking that we teach our younger people that there's still exceptionalism in us. But you have to accept and understand that if we don't lead and we hide or run, we can't be great. We cannot be great. I think you know where I stand. I think you know where I'm at. I think you know what I'm going to do, one way or the other. I will advocate for that. I will talk about that. I will push for that. I'll continue to raise kids, not just my own, but an army, a small army of young guys that are now in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. Some of you guys might even be watching tonight. You know who I am and you know what I do. I don't shy away from responsibility. I don't hide from leadership. I jump into the deep end of the pool and I don't give a damn what's in it. Because that's America at its best. That is us when we are at our best. That's my show for you tonight. I want you to be here with me tomorrow. I'm going to be on with my new crime partner, Steve Williams. He's a Marine infantry veteran. And we're going to do a show on Veterans Day. It's Vet Talk. And we're going to talk about those things that make our military and our veterans so unique and special on this planet. Really looking forward to that. Again, you guys know the deal. If you can't watch them all, I get it. It's not easy. Our attention spans are decreasing and diminishing by the second all over the planet. But at the very least, you know, take a piece, take a slice, get a little bit of information. There's no way you didn't learn something tonight, or that at the very least, there is no way I didn't force you to think critically and seriously about our place in this, on this globe. There's no way. Okay, so I want to see you tomorrow for the Vets Day. With this one, please like it, share it out, get it out to some other people, and tell them, like, this show tonight that we did, and we're just about wrapped up, but this show tonight, there was nothing like this that I saw over the last 2 weeks. I know that because I watch a lot, I listen a lot, I check everything out, and then I make sure that I am not doing what other people are doing. This show is different. This show is different. Why do you want to be the same? I don't know. I don't do that. So you guys have a great evening. I want to thank you for being here on a Sunday night. And as I leaked a few weeks ago, I made the mistake of telling people why I raise my hand when I sign off. It is because it's my oath. I still believe in it. And I sign off with my right arm raised because that is the oath I swore to this Constitution. And I will die defending and advocating for the belief in our Constitution. Thank you again for being with me on a Sunday night. I look forward to seeing you guys maybe tomorrow. And then, of course, we'll be back next Friday with another special guest in our new format of not Tag That Track, but Cheap Date Night. TV, movies, and music. Who can hate that, right? That's all good stuff. Anyway, you guys have a good evening. Thank you guys for being here. I will say this. I've got a special gift for Barbara, and I've got a special gift for Carrie Reed, who were with us on the Friday with Gina Lene, local artist, talented musician, Grammy voter. Gina was courteous and generous enough to give me some CDs, and we're going to award those as rewards to some of our guests that were listening the other night. And I think from now on, we're going to have more rewards for watching. I think that's kind of cool, right? I got to bribe you. Anyway, so Barbara, if you're still with me tonight, lady, I love you. Carrie, if you are tonight, I don't know if you are, but Barbara Danko and Carrie Reed, you two ladies will be receiving the Revealed CD by Gina Lene. I'll have to mail one, and Carrie, I'll probably walk over or have my wife get it to you. So, none but love on Supermex Nation tonight, Supermex International. But you guys, again, thank you for being here tonight. I will see you tomorrow and then again on Friday. You guys have a great evening.